Hello everyone, Russ of AquariumX here. Mark Osborne had a question about the pros and cons of using local online classifieds to find pets. Mark says, is there a feasible way to do a video on what to look for or avoid when looking for a used pet, a la Craigslist or other venue? There seem to be tons of herps, but how do you avoid problems? Or is it just a bad idea in general? Well, it's not necessarily a bad idea, and sometimes it can work out really well. For example, I got my initial stock of mourning geckos from a local breeder that I found online. But there are definitely some points you should consider. So let's talk about some of the things to think about when you decide to use local online classifieds, whether that's Craigslist or a local Facebook group or whatever. First of all, the main reason people use local online classifieds is often just to save money because it can be cheaper. It's often cheaper because, to put it bluntly, people are trying to get rid of what they're selling. Also, you don't have to worry about shipping costs, and sometimes you can get a pretty good all-in-one deal: the animal, the enclosure, food, accessories, and so on. Now, there are some cons associated with price. One is that sometimes people will post a really expensive price with an all-in-one deal, thinking people will take it, and if you just jump at the first one you find, you may not get that great a deal. So make sure to shop around some. And another point is that sometimes those all-in-one deals include a lot of accessories or materials that you don't really want or need. And finally, depending on how much time you have, remember that time is money. So the time you spent traveling and even the gas that you spend traveling to wherever you're going to pick up the animal that you're looking for, that's part of the equation as well. A final tip while we're talking about price: keep in mind that unless it says prices are firm in the ad, you might have a little bit of bargaining room. Don't try to lowball it too much, but keep in mind that sometimes they're willing to accept a little less if you have cash in hand. And now let's talk about the quality of the animal and the enclosure that you get. Now, quality can vary a lot. On the high end, sometimes what you're getting is excess stock from a breeder who has some really, really good stock and is just willing to move it quickly at a low price because has a high volume and needs to move things out. Or sometimes you might have a really dedicated pet owner who has given excellent care to the pet for its whole life up to now, and suddenly because of a life-changing event they're forced to move, or their apartment no longer allows pets or something like that. You can get a really good deal just because they have no choice about getting rid of the pet. And on the other side of the spectrum, sometimes you can find a really neglected animal in poor health, nearly knocking on death's door. So you have to be really careful. Some suggestions to help you out with that. Well, first of all, in whatever wording you're using, whether you're talking to someone on the phone or on texts or through email or whatever way you're communicating, make it very clear that when you are coming, you're not necessarily coming to buy, you're coming to see the animal in question and see the enclosure, whatever you're going to purchase, that whatever you're considering purchasing, that you're coming to see and evaluate whether or not you want to buy it. That way you're not misleading anyone and they're not necessarily counting on you buying it because you haven't committed to it. Now, this may sound obvious, but make sure you don't pay until you are sure you want the animal in question and you're right there. That way you have a chance to decide if the animal is healthy, if it's something that you're willing to commit to. Now, if you are not sure, if you don't have the experience that you need to be able to determine whether or not the animal is healthy, I would recommend not purchasing in this way. It's a little bit risky, unless you can bring someone who is experienced with you and they can help you decide whether or not the animal is in good condition. Now, if you are experienced enough to recognize a healthy animal and you recognize that the animal is not healthy, you need to decide what you are willing to do. I can't answer that question for you, but you need to decide if you're willing to adopt an animal that may have permanent effects from issues. You may be able to reverse some of those effects or help cure the animal or make it a lot healthier, but it may or may not have some permanent problems throughout its life because of that. So you need to decide that. But if you are not experienced enough to determine that, I recommend you start out with an animal that is very healthy. So in today's world, we also need to think about safety. Safety in terms of avoiding fraud and personal safety. So to avoid fraud, one of the most important things you can do is, as I said, don't pay until you're right there, the animal is in hand. Don't send PayPal or anything else in advance. It may sound obvious, but sometimes people can be trusting because the situation seems legitimate when it's not. And in terms of personal safety, you should make sure that the person in question that you're going to meet up with is willing to meet you in a public place. Now, you may or may not feel comfortable coming to their home, but they should at least be willing to meet you in a public place if that's what you feel is necessary to stay safe. And also, whether or not you go to a public place or to a private home, it's best not to go alone. So hopefully these 3 main points will help you think about what you should consider before getting a pet, reptile or otherwise, from local online classifieds. Think about whether or not it's actually going to save you money. Think about the factors in the quality of the animal and its health. And finally, to keep yourself safe from fraud and personal danger. Thanks for watching. I release videos every Friday all about aquarium and vivarium pets. Please feel free to leave a comment or a like, and if you haven't already,
subscribe.
And then click the bell icon so you don't miss anything. If you'd like a free Aquarimax t-shirt or mug, you can enter into the contest on my 7,000 subscriber video. And then on April 10th, I will draw 2 winners. I hope you win.